Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Conversation podcast with alumni. My name is Diana Guzman Lugo. I am the Career Services Coordinator for Candler Career Services, and I would love to ask our guests if they would go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Marisa Sifontes, and I am a 2021 Candler grad, so not that long ago. I currently serve as the Associate Rector at St. James Church in Manhattan. I'm an Episcopal priest. And prior to coming to seminary, I actually was a practicing lawyer for 20 years. So I came to Candler kind of mid-career with two kids in tow, which is a little bit unusual for Candler students who typically skew on grandkids or no kids at all. Um, and my time at Candler was very rich. I um, did a certificate in the Episcopal Studies program, and I also did concentrations in JPACT and Scripture and Interpretation.
Hi, my name is Eunil David Cho. I am a Candler graduate, graduated in 2015, and then I continued my time at Emory. I went on to do my PhD in the Graduate Division of Religion and graduated in 2020. So eight consecutive years. Good times at Emory. I'm currently assistant professor of spiritual care and counseling at Boston University School of Theology, which is a fellow Methodist sister seminary in Northeast. Um, in addition to that, I'm an ordained Presbyterian minister. Um, and prior to seminary, I was a middle school social studies teacher. So, very happy and thrilled to be here.
It is often the case for some Candler students to come to seminary as a second degree. So I think I would like to ask you both what brought you to that decision, because both of you come from very different backgrounds. So, Marissa, if you would like to start.
Sure. I can say that when I started my discernment process in the Episcopal Church, I actually wasn't seeking to become a priest. I was perfectly happy being a lawyer and practicing and had been doing so quite happily. But sometimes the Lord puts other calls on your life. And so for me to pursue that call and come to Candler and leave my time as a lawyer behind was nothing but the Holy Spirit working in my life and me responding to the call. So it was more than a little daunting, I think, to have an established career and find your life suddenly turning in a completely different direction. But I have learned to trust that the path that is before me isn't one that I always see as clearly on my own, and to trust that the direction I'm being led in is the correct one.
Yeah, for me, I think at the senior year of my college, I felt called. I received God's very strong calling, um, inviting me to sounds really grand, but really dedicate my life to serving God and God's people. Uh, but at the same time, I went through a phase of the questioning, am I good enough? My grandfather was a minister, so am I good enough to be a minister like my grandfather? And yeah, so I went through that phase of discernment, but also a lot of self-doubt and questions and all. And then the teaching opportunity came along for me. So yeah, I after college I became a teacher because I knew I enjoy teaching and I've always had a heart for serving young people. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So it really became a good year of just growing as a person, but also yeah, no, I think I'll say my time as a teacher really. I got to see how it was actually a Christian school where I had my job, and I that importance of combining faith and learning when those two go hand in hand, it not only forms a person of faith, but also a person who learns well and who not only learns to gain knowledge, but also learn knowledge to serve other people. So that was a very formative time for me to grow, not only as a teacher, but also as a person. And then so at the end of my teaching career, I knew that it was time for me to, yeah, pursue theological education. And then I became a youth minister while serving seminary. So now I see that as uh, so it was a starting point for me to really work with youth, which became kind of my research interest as well, youth and young people, their faith development as well as identity development and formation and all. So now I really see that as a valuable starting point of my journey of serving, but also researching youth and practical theology and spiritual care for them as well.
That's beautiful for both of you guys. I think from there, I'm going to ask you both a little bit more specific questions. So, for Marissa, how do you think your background as a lawyer helped the way you interacted with the materials in class?
Well, I mean, I think the most obvious thing is that law school involves a lot of reading, and so does theology school. So, I think that my time as a lawyer prepared me in that way. Um, the other piece I think that has been helpful, at least in school, is kind of being able to quickly synthesize a lot of information. I think, especially starting out, for me, coming back to school after a long time without being in school, just having to get back into that mode of studying, but it's really taking in so much and being able to synthesize it and work with it rather quickly. That was helpful. There's a lot more now, I think, that as a priest, using the skills that I have as a lawyer um, comes up all the time, particularly with regard to pastoral care. But I don't want to jump ahead if we're going to talk about that later.
We are, but it's okay if conversations get intermixed. Thank you. Eunil, so I was curious where you did your Con Ed 1, because I feel like that sentiment of coming into Candler and not knowing if you're going to be good enough, if you're ready for ministry. Um, I know, for example, I did mine at Lee Arendale State Prison as prison chaplaincy, and I remember first semester of Candler, I walked in and I was like, "Oh, I'm not ready to be called a chaplain." And so, what was that like for you? And also, when did you start to feel that confidence in your calling?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I think, yeah, regarding the Con Ed 1 experience, my placement site was in the city of Clarkston, and I worked with the refugee families, and and I actually taught English to them. So there, I also used my teaching skills and sensibility as a way to serve people. And uh, yeah, so I think that Con Ed experience where, it's very tempting as the graduate student to, because you have so much work to do, so much to read and write. And it's very tempting to kind of be in the library and just to, read and write. But Con Ed almost like kind of pushes you out of that comfort zone of learning on your own, but really like get out there and kind of face the world and like really show up, right? I mean, that's the number one chaplaincy step, right? You just show up, not because you know everything, not because you know people there, but you just show up, and that's an act of faith. And to me, Con Ed 1 experience, especially in the beginning, was just an act of faith. I just knowing and kind of trusting that this is where God is leading me to go and learn and meet people and serve them, right? So yeah, I think it wasn't like one particular moment where it all got crystallized, but it was a gradual process where even still now, and I think when we are called to do something, it's always not, there's no moment 100% like we know for sure this is what we're doing and I know how I'm doing this, or I've at least to me, the level of confidence isn't always 100%, but it's always a combination of a little bit of doubt, a little bit of questioning, a little bit of confusion, but still trusting your experience, trusting God, trusting your community, um, and trusting that, yeah, people who support you pray for you. So yeah, I think so. Con Ed experience to me was really a combination of those two, but also, yeah, also the combination of in classroom learning, but also experiential learning out there. And then, yeah, and you have a lovely community, cohort where you go to Clarkson and you come back and you discuss and you reflect on your experience theologically, experientially, and yeah. So I think yeah, so Con Ed experience looking back was a very formative. I would say even more so than my church experience because it was such an unfamiliar kind of experience for me. I mean, I grew up in church, so Con Ed 2 felt like not that it was easy, but it felt more familiar. But Con Ed 1 experience, going to Clarkston, learning about the city that I had never known about, driving there. So that's what yeah, those are the things I remember, like using your map to find these homes where the families that I served lived, and so those kind of experiential learning of yeah, just trusting the process. Um, so yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. It was more great than the question. Marisa, you were ready to jump ahead to pastoral care as well. And also, would you like to share with us where you did your kind of one? And I believe you did CPE as well, right?
I did. Yeah. So in the Episcopal Studies program, Con Ed works a little bit differently, at least right now. When I was there, we were placed in a church all 3 years. And so the ministry side of training was really the focus, and you got different pieces of Con Ed through your experience with parishioners and serving in the system that you were. So my first year, I was out at Church of the Good Shepherd in Covington, Virginia, and about 35 minutes east of Candler. And then the next 2 years, I was at St. Luke's, Atlanta, which is right downtown. So those are the two parishes I served. I actually think that one of the reasons I came to Candler was the Con Ed experience, and had hoped to have the same Con Ed 1 experience that all of my other classmates did, but that wasn't how the Episcopal Studies program was structured at that time. So I hope that they, change it. That's one of the things that I do wish that I had had the same experience as my classmates, both for class relationships and friendships, and also because I think that the Con Ed 1 experience at Candler is so rich and so different than what's out there at a lot of other schools. I did my CPE at Grady, which is a level 1 trauma hospital in Atlanta. And CPE is required for ministry in the Episcopal Church, at least in my diocese, the Diocese of North Carolina. It was. That was an amazing experience. It actually, I did it during instead of, a lot of people do CPE during the summertime, and I did it during a semester. I did it during the spring semester of my second year. And so I had to adjust my expectations and my schedule in order to fit that in, while I had a full load of coursework also. And of course, that being the spring of 2020, that's kind of where the wheels fell off of society as well. So, being in the hospital at the time when COVID was unfolding and the world was trying to figure out what was going on was quite different. It was a very unique experience to be serving in the hospital overnight when, yeah, when COVID was just unfolding. So, but a very transformative experience to me, both to serve at Grady, because of the type of cases they have, the type of chaplaincy that one learns about there, the type of pastoral care that is needed in crisis situations, high trauma situations, and also because of everything that happened because of COVID. Yeah. Thanks.
And so you both were at Emory, um, for what my friend coined luminary, almost. Um, I could see how that would be hard. I
It,
do want to hear more about that.
It was. I mean, I was lucky that my first year was a totally normal year.
Mhm.
And so that I think once we switched after a year and a half, um, at least we had friendships established and routines established. We definitely, there was a lot that was missed, but I think people have missed things throughout their lives because of COVID and because of other factors. So we all adjusted to Seminary for better or for worse. But at least um, Candler made different ways for students to still interact and tried to find ways for us to get back together. Even though Candler is not a residential seminary, having opportunities for students to gather whenever possible. And, students with faculty and staff, right? An entire community. That was important during that time, just as it was before and is now.
And that would have been during your last year of your GDR, right? For how COVID impacted school. I would love to hear about that. I also, going back a little bit to the Con Ed one that you spoke of, would love to hear what are some leadership skills that developed that you were surprised.
Yeah, yeah, so I graduated May 2020 and and for many years I was hoping for a really grand in-person graduation, hooding and all celebration. But yeah, that was March 2020 was when COVID was really unfolding and all these sudden changes to Zoom meetings. Everybody was learning how to use Zoom for everything. So yeah, I remember my dissertation defense was scheduled to be in person and then got changed to a Zoom defense. And now it's very normal, but back in the day, there are a lot of changes. So yeah, so I think and yeah, so the ending of my time at Emory felt a little abrupt. And everybody was grieving and learning to make adjustment and grieving in many ways. So yeah, I felt that yeah, not that I'm sad, but or anything, but it wasn't the closure that I expected. But but that's part of our lives. And now, so yeah, so well, in that sense, it's meaningful. My mom told me, it's because I had my defense at home with my parents over Zoom. So my mom said, how this is pretty meaningful that you are doing your PhD defense at home with your parents praying for you, they're not listening because they were so nervous for me. But so even so those moments and then my PhD advisor who was Candler faculty, Karen Scheib, who's retired, she and I met separately in May, and she hooded me personally. So Yeah. So because of COVID, of course, it was hard. It was a difficult time for everybody. But we all had to get creative and innovative, making, yeah, ways to make it meaningful. And then tying that to Con Ed one experience, I think, yeah, once again, just learning to show up. I mean, as much as it was exciting for me to learn about the city of Clarkston and get to know the refugee community and listening to their stories and all. I mean, I'm an immigrant, right? But I'm not a refugee, right? So even just learning the differences between an immigrant or a child of immigrants and someone who came to America as a refugee status, like what are the differences, right? So those lessons and learnings, as much as you do your best to learn, but it's another thing to show up, right? Um, show up to people that you've never met, show up to people who might not speak English fluently, and learning how to communicate with them, but using your bodies to communicate with them. So those things, the importance of showing up. So I really learned that. Um, Oh yeah, I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to have all the knowledge. I don't have to have all these skills developed, prepared, and ready uh, to serve a particular community. You do preparation as much as you can, but the important thing is to show up and just be who you are. Um, Act with kindness and act with humility. I mean that's what teach spiritual care to my students too. Like when it comes to interreligious encounters, it's not like you have to learn and master every single religion out there, but you just have to ask questions with humility. Can you help me understand your story? Can you help me understand what you hope to achieve? Can you help me understand how I can help you, right? So yeah, so I think driving to Clarkston every Thursday, I remember, and I had to visit different home every week to provide like in-home English lessons to families, children and mothers especially. And yeah, and yeah, that brave, courageous act of showing up, but still, and yeah. So I think those are really important, precious moments. I think that really that was a good preparation for my CPE training later, and also my church ministry, and even till now, like first day of class, professors are just the same. I get nervous too. Like I get nervous of not knowing who will come into the room, but still showing up with as much as I can and let God take the lead and take us where God wants to go. And so yeah, and then lastly, I think as a fellow immigrant, migrant in general, as someone who also navigates different cultural boundaries, there was definitely some common grounds that I could be with these refugee family members and yeah, like teaching them how to communicate with doctors, teaching them how to, I don't know, call, telephone companies, to teach them how to call banks, like when English is your not first language. Like, how do you do that? Like those real life situations that really requires patience and yeah, so those things. So I really, so a lot of opportunities for building connections and empathy and trust. So really meaningful time looking back.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I'm going to ask you more about that in a second. Marissa, I have a question on how you feel um, your time as a lawyer versus the time as a rector have been fulfilling in different ways. Because I think we mentioned this at the very beginning. There's very big fear leaving a good, lucrative job. But also, it's probably why you went into the JPAC concentration, isn't it?
You'd be surprised how many priests are former lawyers. It's a pretty well worn path. And I think part of it is because law can be a really hard profession, right? It is it, it it can be monetarily good. It depends on, what you're doing and how you choose to do it. But it isn't always as fulfilling for the soul, right? And so I think a lot of people get to a point in their careers where they are looking to do something else than what they're doing currently. For me, that wasn't the case. I was serving as a general counsel of a nonprofit. I really loved what I did. And it was my parish discernment committee who decided that they saw a different path for me towards ordination than the one that I saw for myself. And then that was what brought on my soul searching to say, all right, what do you have in store for me here, God? What is the path supposed to look like? Clearly, it's not what I think it is. Um, so for me, because I guess it didn't take a lot of work to make that jump for me for a couple reasons. But one was just kind of because I was in the learning how to be obedient to the call, right? And knowing that once I got comfortable with the fact that my life was going to look very different going forward, knowing that it's going to be all right, right? Because if God has put me on this path, then what I experience, what I go through, it's what I'm meant to go through. Um, so yeah, yeah. But there's so much of so many of the skills that I gained as a lawyer that I use as a priest every day. Whether it's, like you said, the type of negotiation and conflict management that one deals with when engaging the general population, when engaging parishioners, when engaging adaptive changes in a church system. There's that. And kind of, the contract review type of things that we go through. But the reality is that no matter what your skill set is, no matter what your interests are, God will find some way to use them, right? I know priests who were former archivists, and what a gift to have that type of skill when you're going in and trying to document histories or trying to architects who help to protect buildings. God will find a way to use the tools that you have. And that's, I guess, what I see more than anything, that it's not really about being a lawyer. It's about understanding that your full self shows up. So I remember in my internship, before I came to Candler, and I was working in a small church in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and the toilet broke. And, right before we were having a big event, and I ran out to the hardware store so I could get a new handle and replace the handle, right? That is like nothing that seminary teaches you about, but life teaches you those skills. And so thankfully it was something that I could take on and deal with, and the most random of things, but God finds a way to use all of you and allow you to show up.
And I have a question. A lot of what you said during your um, Con Ed 1 experiences, was that what inspired you to later write your book from 2024? Or was this something that you had already had in your heart before you came into seminary? And how did your time at Candler help develop your interest in this topic? And please share the title of your book and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Um, yeah, no, I think that my journey as a scholar, but also as a minister. I mean, to me, it's really both. Like um, yeah, to me, it's almost equal. Like I don't really share that in the space of academia, but yeah, to me, it's really both. Like I'm a pastor scholar, scholar pastor, and yeah, and I'm also a product of an immigrant church, immigrant community, diaspora community. And yeah, and so at least when I started seminary, I always knew that that's where I'm called to serve, right? And to me, primarily, that was the kind of Asian American, Korean American community. It's especially in Georgia, the Atlanta area. That's where I thought I had in mind. But then the Con Ed 1 experience, God really, I would say, broadened my eyes to see there other migrant communities out there. And also being a part of the Clarkston community really opened my eyes to see other innovative, creative ministries being done. And also for me, the Con Ed 1 experience, you're in social setting, right? And how God's work goes beyond the church. And to me, that was a really eye-opening thing, as someone who was very kind of grow up sheltered in the church setting, to see how churches can partner with nonprofits, as Marissa said, to serve larger communities, and that's what I saw in Clarkston. So yeah, so I think that kind of a theme of being called to serve um, people who are displaced, or people who are searching for home, or people who are struggle for belonging. I think that's been the same, but I think yeah, the Clarkson, my Con Ed 1 experience, and then I would say Con Ed 2 experience, really going back to my Gwinnett County, where the immigrant community, where I'm really from. Yeah, those two experiences really came together, and also my own journey, as Marisa said, like my own journey of growing up as a Korean American kid, and that I don't have to elaborate the identity crisis, language differences, and um, all those experiences, right? And then what Candler and Theological Academy has provided for me is to really make sense of all of them, all of those experiences, right? Because it's not just um, yeah, because it's hard to have an opportunity, or uh, yeah, how do we make sense of everything that happens in our lives, right? But at least I think Candler and theological education community has given me tools, time, and safe enough community, and support from people, professors, fellow colleagues and students, who really told me, "Hey, what you're doing is really important. It matters to God. It matters to God's people." And when you're doing something so personal, so close to you, that it doesn't feel so significant, right? Because it's so, right, like immigration story. I mean, that's I mean, I've been living it out for all my life. But when I translate that to scholarship, or when I translate it to a different community, talked about it, and people, I mean, the church needs it. The world needs your story, need to hear your story, and needs to learn what you can offer. So I think, yeah, just to kind of tie all that, I think, especially my MDiv experience, as well as PhD experience as well, was really for me to, yeah, make sense of my own journey, what God has done, what God has taught me, and how God has brought me through this journey, and also about the people that I've been serving, um, working with, especially for the book, which was my dissertation, which was to really tell the stories of undocumented young people, and some of them are my own youth group students, actually. And then I got through my field work, I got to know other undocumented young people in the greater Atlanta area. Um, and then I not only interviewed them, but I also got to spend some time with them, visited their churches, and joined their activism work, and got to meet some of their family and friends. And yeah, and then the PhD training has helped me to translate those experience into scholarship. Um, so yeah, I think so that's how I've been kind of integrating all of my experience like that. And but once again, without a home, like a kind of a theological home, whether it's just church or school, you can't do that work alone. But I think Candler was a very supportive, brave space where I felt empowered to write what I wrote. Um, I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, I should. Yeah. So that's my response. Thank you.
It very much does. And this book is definitely going to, I need to read, but after finals. Something that I have not asked you both yet, and I've been alluded to a little bit, is how important was the Candler community for you guys, especially during this time in seminary. One of the things we've talked a lot about with other alumni is that seminary education, unlike other degrees, is very transformative, but that also makes it very vulnerable and very personal. Um, and so, either one of you guys or both of you, could you share a bit about how much the Candler community helped you guys through these journeys?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think even today, my Candler community helps to support me in my roles in ministry. In fact, a group of friends were just texting yesterday to say, all right, Holy Week is coming. It's going to be busy. When are we getting together just to check on each other? So the friendships that were formed during Candler remain now and continue to be supportive, and that's very meaningful. In the context of ministry, you cannot do it alone. You have to have those who support you. You have to have not just the formal structures that they recommend of, a therapist and a spiritual director, but also just colleagues who you can go to when you have questions about how do I do this, or you're frustrated about a situation, or you're wondering, or you just need somebody to hear you. And so having formed those friendships and relationships at Candler during my time there, they remain invaluable to me, and as supports to my career and my flourishing in the priesthood.
Yeah, definitely the same. And I think I can talk about especially the professors I've met at Candler, and now some of them I still see them as my teachers. I mean, now they're technically colleagues, but uh, in my Korean culture, once your teachers are teachers. And yeah, I think I've have through Candler and through GDR time, I think I've had um, scholars, professors, colleagues who are not only so intellectually brilliant, but also who are very compassionate, who are very who are good listeners. That's really rare in academia, and who really care about the well-being of students. And I mean, there are many great seminaries where I am is also great, but Candler community, especially the faculty, I know the faculty looks a little different now than when I was at Candler, but I know that tradition, the culture is still, I know it's still there, where the faculty and students are really supported and encouraged to have good conversations, challenging conversation in a very collaborative manner. It's it's less hierarchical, I think, and but it's more open, and I know that reflects the larger Candler community that really fosters that, because academia can be very hierarchical, can be very uh, uh can be very challenging and even isolating and lonely. But Candler community, I think I've met really great teachers who really believed in me, supported me. And now and some of them are retired now, and I'm still in touch with them. And a lot of them I still see in AAR and a lot of these guild meetings. And yeah, it's just different. It's different. Yeah, it's just different when you see them. So, and also, yeah, that kind of Candler connection always makes it so special to see them, work with them. Um, yeah. So I think, yeah, I would say that's pretty special. Not every school has cultivated that kind of community. So I really have a big appreciation for them, and I'm trying to be the same where I am, where God sent me, you know. Um, um, every school's a little different. So here, I know I'm called to be here and to really serve people the way I have been, where I was served by Candler people. So yeah.
If I can jump back in, one of my
Mm,
favorite parts of Candler community while I was at school was the banjo circle that happened on Thursdays, I think it was, after chapel. And both faculty and staff, actually staff from across the university would come over with an instrument, not just banjos, but mandolins and fiddles, and or and some of us sang. And because it happened outside, it was one of the things that could come back after COVID started a little sooner. And it was such a joy to be in that kind of cross, um, a community that crossed so many different aspects of Candler life, Emory life, and everybody just kind of being there for the joy of music and being together. That was one of the things that really fueled my soul. I wonder if it still happens these days. But when the weather's good, hanging out and listening to good music and singing along with it was always such a joy.
Well, I will say a lot of the things that you guys mentioned about Chandler, even though it's probably a little bit different from what you guys remember, still hold true. And I think it's part of the DNA at Candler. And I think one of my biggest blessings that I never foresaw is working with career services and getting to reach out to alumni, realizing that they care and want to pour back into the community as much as the faculty, the staff, and the peers. And it's when I get to talk to you guys, it feels like you guys are still here. You guys are still part of. I could walk past you guys in the hallways. You guys are still very much an integral part of this community. You guys have left your marks.
mm.
One quick little question. It's going to be a hard one. If you could go back to one class and one class only, and this could either be the class that you loved the most, it could be the class that you didn't feel like you got, and you go back and you're like, wow, I wish I would have gotten more out of it because I didn't realize how valuable that information was. Whatever may be the class that challenged you the most, what class would it be? Because you guys listed some pretty good classes when I asked what classes shaped your path the most. So I know it's hard to choose just one.
I guess I'll have to choose intro to pastoral care because that's what I've been teaching as professor too. But I remember intro to pastoral care, I think PC 501, I think, taught by Manuel Larte, I mean, of course, not only he was a great teacher, and I still, I mean, have a great relationship with him, and so blessed to have him as my first professor who taught that course because I'm teaching that now. I'm trying to do something, make some contribution to he has made in the guild. But I remember every time I went to intro to pastoral care course, and I always left the classroom with such heavy heart, and also very really uh almost every day with some headache, right? And it's like your body kind of responds to um yeah, often the painful stories or painful case studies that's real that are just hard to put in words, because and I think looking back, that was how I learned about what it really means to practice care in a pastoral way, because it's not about finding answers. It's not about um finding solutions, but it's about companionship. It's about showing up. It's about listening, and that's hard work, that's a lot of that takes a lot of training. So I think, yeah, as much as it was wonderful, it really became the turning point of my vocational discernment. Oh, maybe this is something that I can study, I can research, and even become a professor. And but also it was the course that gave me most challenge. And maybe now I could say that was God nudging me. Like maybe this is what you're called to go deeper. Uh, but I remember, yeah, leaving each class with always with some headache. Always I had to kind of walk um like a good 20 minutes, the quad, to kind of process what I heard. And yeah. So as much as it was meaningful, it was also challenging because I think it really, yeah, I remember this somatic kind of pain that I felt. It's like body check, right? CPE language. It's like you're checking your body. So that's what I think what I was going through to really responding to not triggers, but kind of yeah, jolting moments of care, which is a part of pastoral care, right? So yeah, so I would say intro to pastoral care course.
My very first semester, before classes had started, there was Episcopal Studies kind of potluck to bring in the new students. And I was there, and I happened to sit at the same table as Dr. Kyle Lambelet, who's no longer at Candler, unfortunately. And he mentioned a class that he was teaching for the next semester on reconciliation. I don't remember the name of it. And he made the class come alive for me, and it was not on my radar screen at all. And I jumped into the class. And I think doing that shaped the trajectory of not just my time at Candler, but also beyond, because the work of reconciliation is really such a core part of my ministry, of the work that I do, the way that I live into the gospel. So from literally from my very first days at Candler, that class has shaped why I did a certificate, the JPACT concentration, and why even today I'm involved in looking at reparations and reconciliation work here in the Diocese of New York. Yeah, it absolutely has set me on the trajectory that I find myself on now.
Well, I've kept you both a little bit longer than I should have for the podcast recording aspect. So I will allow us to transition over to the Q&A. But before we do, any last minute tidbits of advice that you guys have, or any last words that you guys have for any current or prospective student?
Yeah, so I think we've both talked about this quite a bit. And and seminary is a time where you get to show up as your whole self. Because Candler is such a supportive environment, you should bring who you are. You don't have to be who you think you should be at Candler, but show up as God made you and allow that to speak for you as you as you navigate the hallways, whether physically or virtually. Um, Candler is a great place to be. It is safe. It is supportive, not just the other students, but the faculty and staff as well. I think that's one of the gifts of seminary is really that you get to be who God made you and navigate the world as such. You can't be that everywhere, but you can be that at Candler.
Yeah, I think uh, also just really echo Marisa's point. I think for me was that looked like Candler is a great place to also struggle and have questions and go through some hard, rigorous discernment. And it's like I don't know. I'm just gonna say, maybe you'll meet some people or inside Candler, outside Candler. Oh, I already know what I'm gonna do with my life. I already know what I'm gonna do with this ministry. I'm gonna do this and become this and that. So like good for them. Sometimes, so sometime I see even at where I'm at my school too. Sometime you're starting seminary, you're still having some questions. God led you there but you don't have all the pieces find out together. But that's really okay. I just want to tell you that. And then you run into some people who say like they're saying things like they have figured everything out. And I think just leave them alone. You just go your way because everybody's pathway looks different. God leads us all in different ways. So Candler is a very good place to struggle, have questions. As Mary said, it's very rare. Uh, and there are people who will really struggle with you and still loving you, still supporting you, uh, still envisioning your career and all that, and still embracing vulnerability, still embracing confusion, because that's a part of life, right? So I really hope that yeah, this is a rare, whether it's three or two or five, it's a great place to struggles and not maybe not have answers, but gain a perspective, maybe and have a deeper relationship with God and just clear sense of where God is leading you. And as Marisa said, like becoming your whole self, knowing more about who you are. That's great enough, right? Because the trust, not many people get to that point in life. So I really hope that Candler would provide that safe enough place for people to struggle at the same time flourishing and thriving.
Marissa, we want to thank you so much on behalf of Candler Career Services, but also Candler Community for coming back, being willing to speak with us, and all the amazing wisdom that you guys have shared with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yeah.